Athletor Podcast. Jody Strittmatter joins us today. Thank you so much, first of all, for joining us. I know you're busy. I know you got camps going on and stuff like that. So taking a little bit of time to talk to us is really appreciated, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I think everyone in the wrestling world kind of understands that Young Guns has become the gold standard for wrestling clubs across the country. But I'm curious to know about like the origin story, right? Like how did it can't just be you opened your doors and developed the best wrestling club in the country. I don't think that it works like that. So give us the origin story of Young Guns Wrestling Club.
Yes. So I was, we graduated from Iowa. So I was 125. Eric Juergens was 133 pounder. So we're wrestling freestyle. It was 1 year postgraduate. And Eric Juergens came up to me one day and he's like, "Hey, I have an opportunity to start a club in Michigan. Would you be interested in going with me?" And really, there was very, very limited clubs at that time. There was only a few in the country. Right. So I really didn't know what he meant or what it was. But I was still wrestling freestyle and I was starting to have some success. So 1 year after I graduated, I was in the U.S. Open finals and I lost to Teague Moore. So I was right there. I was knocking at the door. But, back then there wasn't a whole lot of financial, backing, and you didn't know if you're going to get, your paycheck to even make rent and stuff like that. So,
Sure.
and I fighting injuries, I was wrestling 121, which was a really, really big cut for me. And so it was just a lot of things like that. And, so initially I said, no, I really want to stay in Iowa City and keep training. And he's persistent. He was my roommate, and he was telling me about it and, what all was going to, entail. So, one day, I don't know if I was injured or if I was having a hard time making weight. I was like, you know what, let's do it. So we packed up everything and we moved to Hesperia, Michigan, just a really, really tiny small town in Michigan. And we started a club. And the first day there was about 10 kids, and it just kept slowly growing and growing and growing. And the first couple months, that's just what it was. It was called a wrestling club. We didn't have a name for it or anything. And we went out to eat. We're like, hey, if we're going to keep doing this, we're going to have to open up a bank account. We're going to have to get a name for this. So
crazy talk. Let's crazy talk. Just an LLC. Just hear me out. Hear me out.
This is 21 years ago. And we went out to eat and we just started throwing names around. And that night, Young Guns stuck. And, that's how kind of we started it. And I love what we were doing, helping kids. And it was never about being the best club or anything like that. It was like we were one of the first ones ever. And it was just like you truly enjoy helping kids. I'm like super passionate about wrestling and super passionate about helping kids. And I loved it, but I missed being, in home in Pennsylvania. So I was like, I love this club thing, but I can do this back home. So that's whenever me and Eric moved back to Pennsylvania. He spent about a year here also. And then he was kind of the same thing. He loves club and he moved back home to, be with his family. And it worked also business wise for the club, to kind of start branching and spreading it out a little bit. And so he's still in Iowa in the Quad Cities doing Young Guns and we're here.
That's interesting. But here's what it is to me, man. It is very obvious that there's something going on with the way that you bring kids through the sport. What do you think you're doing? And again, you can say, oh, well, you're in Western PA and you're in wrestling country and it's real easy to get, but there's more to it than that. There's more to it than that. What are you doing to develop so many high-level kids on a consistent basis, right? Like that's not easy to do, Joe.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that. But I think that the number one thing that I try to do, my brother tries to do, is just to get the kids to fall in love with the sport. Like anybody can teach a single leg, right? Anybody can teach a bar. I'm like, can you get the kids to fall in love? Like they don't have to go to practice. They can't wait to go to practice. And that's when we know that we got something really, really good. And I think it's not easy, but that's our number one job as coaches to like, when they fall in love with it, when they walk out the doors, that you're still in a great place. when they walk in the doors, it's easy. They're right in front of you. They're going to work hard. Doesn't matter if they're good or not. They're going to work hard for their coach. But when they walk out the door and that they still can't wait to get a strength session in, or they're going to break down film, they can't wait to keep, learning. That's whenever you got something really special. And I think that's been the key over the years is, just, trying to help them fall in love with it, because you have a lot of, and everybody does it differently. And parents, I think their goal is to try to help their kid, but sometimes it's done in the wrong way, and they force them into hating the sport because they do it the wrong way, or they go about it. They push without the kid loving it at that time. And then, there's pushback and you don't get the results that you want, like long term. So you fall in love with it, and you can't spend enough time doing what you love, right?
That's true, but parents are crazy, and parents in Western PA specifically are crazy, real crazy.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
how do you
tradition,
mitigate that, man?
I think the more time that they spend around us, and they see that we really care about the kids and their futures, and again, the parents are going to push, and that's not a bad thing either. Like whenever the parents are really, really pushing and trying to help the kids. But again, I think there's a really, really fine line there. And all of our best kids, their parents push them, pretty dang hard, but in a way that the kids respond. And then I think that there's that time also as you start getting older that it's important for the parents maybe to step back and the coaches start to have a little bit more of a role. And I think the cool thing is that every kid is different and every kid responds differently. So I think that I don't want to put all kids in one bubble right now. That's not true. There's so many.
It's impossible to do that, right?
Yeah,
it's impossible because some kids are just super motivated and they respond to the stick.
Right. Yeah.
They don't respond to the carrot at the end of it. They respond to the actual stick, and that's fine. There's something to that. I will say this though, knowing your kid is important, right? So, but I will say, I overheard a conversation with a parent and John Myers not too long ago. And Coach Myers said to the dad, "What weight is your kid going to wrestle?" And I guess he's just so conditioned to having the parents have input on this type of stuff. But he was floored when the dad was like, "I don't care. Ask them." I walked up to the guy and I raised his hand. I was like, "Winner, you win. You shouldn't care." This is not for you. You are a facilitator. You are a ride to practice, and you feed them, and that is, and you hug them when they win, and you hug them when they lose. I think the sport is going in that direction. When we were kids, it was way worse than it is now.
Yeah.
But I think guys like you and guys like the other coaches in the PNL are helping facilitate that change with professionalism in youth coaching. Because I got to tell you, Jody, I've seen some things, and I know you've seen some things in this sport that I'm not proud of. Honestly, I'm truly not proud of. So what would you say to a new club coach in an area of, I don't know, Oklahoma, where wrestling is important, and dad probably wrestled, and mom knows the sport? And what would you say to that coach to help him deal with the interesting conversations that he's going to have with parents?
Yeah, I mean, I guess again, every coach and that's what's cool about it. Even the P&L, I think we go about it a little bit differently, each one of us, but with the best intentions of the kids. And that's cool again that parents do the same thing with their wrestlers, that they're going to go about it a little bit different here and there. And there's that fine line to walk. And it's so cool. I have a 9-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son now that they're wrestling. So I'm going through it as a father also. And it's just been incredible. But there's that fine line, because I know what you're saying. There's the push. And then there's the also like, "Hey coach, it's my birthday. I'll see you next week. I'm not going to that doesn't fly. You want to be good or you not want to be good. Like, you can still go to practice and work your butt off and then go enjoy, your birthday after or in between another session." So there's that fine line to walk. If you want to be great, you're going to have to sacrifice a lot and give up a lot and be very, very consistent in your life. But still also have a life and be social and be respectable in school and things like that. So there's that fine line to walk, and you get too far away from it and it's going to have a lot of hard time finding success. You start crossing it and you start, wanting to quit. So just trying to find that line and that balance of being committed, being tough, being consistent, but also knowing your limits, and also your longevity is the important thing. You're not trying to win an Olympic title at 9 years old, so just building into that.
You talk about kind of getting kids to, fall in love with the sport. What are some ways that you guys go about doing that at Young Guns?
Man, that's a great question. We read books. We'll read a chapter. Tonight at the end of the day, we're going to grind hard all day long, and tonight we're going to read 2 chapters of a book, and put that into real life things. I think having role models means everything, and I think that's really, really important, that our younger kids want to be like, the older kids. And I tell a story. We had a kid named Nick Roberts, and he was a phenomenal wrestler, and he's passed away now. But he was a phenomenal wrestler. And he made the world team.
Pissed
And
excellence.
What's that?
He pissed excellence. Do you remember his post Fargo? It's the greatest post Fargo interview ever. It was phenomenal. God bless him.
He made a couple bucks on that. Yeah, he made
I bet. Sorry, go ahead.
So he made a world team, and it was this spring, and so we did a free freestyle clinic. We were trying to get kids interested in freestyle. This is years ago, and so I brought Nick up, and he's wearing his United States, world team singlet, and he has all of his gear, and I'm telling the kids about how good he is and where he just went overseas and wrestled. And there's a kid in the front row who had never wrestled freestyle in his life. And that kid, at the end of the session, his dad calls me. He's like, Jody, my son is so excited about freestyle. He can't wait to wrestle his first freestyle match. Like, thank you so much for bringing in Nick. That was incredible. That young kid was Spencer Lee. Spencer Lee then does his thing, win world title. There's a young kid sitting in the front row. Dad, I want to be just like Spencer Lee. I want to win a world title. A couple years later, Bo Bassett won a world title. So it's so important to have great leaders and mentorship. It's so important. Jason Nolf used to always, in his go grab a young kid. And that would just brighten that kid's day so much. So I think having role models and having people to look up to is really, really important. Talking about it all the time, just enjoying the sport, enjoying challenges. No one likes to lose. No one likes to get pinned, but love the challenge. When you're on your back in practice, love that challenge. Love that, that opportunity that you have to try to get off your back. And we've all got pinned in our careers and our lives. So enjoy that, embrace it, and kind of move forward. So I think just talking about it a lot, loving the process instead of just loving to get your hand raised, because you can wrestle like a coward and back up and still get your hand raised, occasionally, I guess. Or, you can go out there and wrestle like a warrior, and sometimes lose, but loving the process of that. And I think that's really, really important, not being afraid to get scored on and things like that. So, and it's so cool. As a coach, I still learn. I still learn from these kids all the time. You'll come in and, that a kid's doing something, you're like, that won't work at the next level. Well, it can. It can. If you do it the right way, it can. So as a coach, I'm still learning. 21 years later, as a club coach, I'm still learning every day. And so it keeps me on my toes, and I enjoy it.
Who's the best? All right, you just rattled off some names. No, hold on. I'll funnel it into who's the freakiest athlete that you've ever had in your room.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. My goodness, there are so many. Oh man, if I start naming names, Jason Nolf, for someone like he went at it just such a unique way.
Yeah.
So you'll see some kids at practice. Say you have a 2-time state champ, and he's really, really good. And a kid who has never qualified goes up to them and says, hey, you want to go this go? And I've seen it before where the 2-time state champ's like, oh, no, you're not good enough. And they'll go find someone. We're like, Nolf, it didn't matter who he would go with a first-year wrestler. He'd go with a college wrestler, a kid who was better. And if he went with the first-year wrestler, he was trying brand new things the whole time. And he would give up takedowns on a first-year wrestler. He was so unique in his approach. Like he didn't care. He just wanted to get in positions and keep learning them. He was where Spencer Lee, if he got scored on at a practice, he was so upset. His dad would call me later and he'd be like, Larry would be like, Jody, what happened to Spencer? He said he had the worst practice of his life. And I'm like, Larry, he scored like 2,000 points. He gave up one takedown the entire practice. He's like, he is so mad at himself right now. So just totally different approaches, and I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. Obviously they worked for each of them. But yeah, it's been so fun over the 21 years of coaching it. Obviously it started very, very, in Michigan, but even that group, I said, we started with 10 kids and then it just kept growing and growing. In that group, our first year was Cam Simons as a sixth grader. He ended up becoming an NCAA champion for Cornell.
He did.
Let's talk about in Michigan, and he was raw at that time, but he just kept working, and credit goes to him and all the work that he put in. But yeah, we've been blessed with a lot of really, really, really good kids that to come through. And right now, you can't ask for a better leader than Bo Bassett, on and off the mat. He's just such a good kid, and my son looks up to him so much, and he does an awesome job.
That is nice, man. So it is a luxury to have pictures on the wall.
Yeah.
That's one thing, right? Because we have a lot of pictures on the wall,
right?
Guys who have won state titles and stuff like that in Poway, and that's wonderful. It's a luxury, okay? It's a luxury of and it's a fruit of the efforts of the town and the institution. However, having a Bo Bassett who has world titles in the room, not just a picture on the wall.
Yep.
This kid is in the room. Talk to me about what that does to elevate the young kids in the room.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying before, like finding that role model. And like for my son, he loves the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Like he loves them. And he got an autograph at training camp where TJ Watt walked by him, boom, signed on. You know what I mean? Where you don't get to talk to him. You don't get to where Bo Bassett or Jason Nolf, at Thanksgiving, he'll just roll through here at a practice and he'll roll with the kids. Instead of getting a quick autograph in 2 seconds with a superstar, the superstars of wrestling, they'll give back. And that's in all areas of the country. But we're very lucky. We'll have kids like that where Jax Forrest, JoJo's working out, my son working out the other day, and Jax Forrest comes right up beside him, and Jax was his partner. Then the next 20 minutes of strength and conditioning little workout. To have that is super, super important. Again, that I want to be like you. Hey, he's human. He's having fun doing it. I'm 10 years younger. I can have fun doing it and work hard too. So
sure.
Yeah.
How big of a difference do you think that it makes to, like Mike said, not just have these role models that you can look to, but you can actually reach out and touch them and have a conversation with them? How big of an impact do you think that's had on your club?
Yeah, I do. And it's been years and years and years and years that, and obviously year one, we didn't have that, so it was
you have to build that. It doesn't come right away.
Yeah, you started it. And I'm not saying that, that if we didn't have it, the kids couldn't be good. I still think that they, you have to keep doing it and talk the right way and helping the kids. But once you build that, and now you have generations of kids that are coming back and giving back. We'll have a Christmas Eve practice where all the college kids are in this room on Christmas Eve in the morning at 8:00 in the morning. They'll all come back. They're home for Christmas break. So it's really cool to see the kids come back, and they're all over the country right now, and even graduated over the years. So yeah, I do think it's really, really important that that we have those kids, and I'm obviously blessed to be able to coach them and now become really, really close friends with them.
Okay, let's get back to the coaching aspect though. Okay, so
yeah.
It's November. It's the end of November. Somewhere around January or late January, early February, most of these kids are not loving life. They are not loving the sport. There is a lull in everyone's wrestling season. How do you talk to these kids and get them excited about the sport, get them excited to win get them excited to train, get them excited to get the weight off. How do you deal with those mid-season kind of lulls that you get? Now, I get it. It's a little different as a club coach than it would be for, say, a high school coach, but you still have to deal with it. I remember being a club coach going, these kids don't want to do shit today. They just don't want to be here today. So how do you deal with that type of mentality and that type of energy level in the room?
I hope not. I don't know. I'm going to be 100% honest, Mike. That thought has never crossed my mind, and I don't let it. I come in with energy. These kids come in, and maybe at home they don't want to come, but once they get around the other like-minded kids, I'm telling you, our practice is energy. It's fun. Like, not fun as in playing dodgeball, but like the kids, they enjoy it. They really, really do. And it maybe if it's all about weight cutting, and I hope not. But I don't know that to be honest, that thought's never crossed my mind, and I haven't seen it with my own eyes. Like, I'm not saying that I'm blessed in some wrestling room that's all happy and fun.
No,
that's not true. But I don't know. As a coach, I guess I have to bring the energy. I have to set that standard. But again, I feed off the kids too. Like, I'm telling you, you go to a practice with Bo Bassett in the room, and he makes you a better coach. Like, he makes you like. There's nowhere in the world that I would rather be than right here, like helping and coaching you. And that's what we have. Awesome. Like, we have a lot of really, really good kids who set the standard. And I think that's contagious, right? Like, you have a contagious room that the leaders and the kids want to be like those kids that are winning, like the Vincenzo Josephs, the Michael Kemmers, and those kids, like, the young kids want to be like them. And so, I don't know. I'm not saying that doesn't ever come in, that burnout or like, but as a coach, like, I talk about it nonstop. Like, to love this time of year. This is what we train. This is what we live for. Like, as a wrestler, what we live for. Like, to love the pressure, to want to be in the pressure. The opposite is being in the stands. There's no pressure in the stands, So love to be in the quarterfinal. Like, it's gonna be pressure, but enjoy that, love that, and thrive.
That's great. That's amazing. That's such a great answer too, because one of the things I would do is just overcompensate. I'm like, all right, we're going all upper body today. We're just going to start chucking people. Let's go. And you see them change, right? You see them change. Cause look, there are points where if I see them drill, forget about them, right? If I see them drill a high crotch to a double one more time, I'm just going to puke. It's enough, right? Like, enough already. But you got to do it, right? Everybody knows you got to do it.
Right.
But yeah, it's fun to kind of change things up as the season kind of drags on. Because look, let's be honest, right? It's probably way more beneficial for them to have high energy and be excited to be in the room than it is for them to drill one more high crotch double than they did before.
And a little bit of difference for me. So I've never done like a high school coaching job where I see the same kids Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You know what I mean? So how Young Guns works is, like, say we have practice like in Johnstown. So I'll be there Monday, and then John would be there the next day. Tuesday, Thursdays. I'm in Murraysville one day, and John's in Altoona one day. So I only see the kids like one time a week, and then I get a different kids, and the kids are getting a different coach. So that might be a little bit different for me. I'm only seeing them 2 to 3 times a week, and sometimes you'll get kids that travel like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'll do multiple practices with you, but I'm only seeing the kids like 1 time a week or 2 times a week, and John's going to see them 1 or 2 times a week. So a little different than like you were saying, like, hey, if we're going to practice high crotches Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like, you get sick of it. So for club, it's different for us. And then even for us, I know we do it different, like than Pinnacle, or even Askren, like I bounce from the different clubs, and John does, and so we see the different kids throughout the week. And so it's just a little bit different that way, I guess. But I see what you're saying.
You talked about the kids setting the tone. I don't imagine that was always the case with you guys. How do you go about kind of building from maybe you have to bring all the energy and all the juice to practice to somebody else is taking it and bringing it for you?
I guess it was just natural, as far as like it was never anything planned. Obviously, whenever I was 23 years old, it was much different. I was wrestling with the guys all the time. Eric was wrestling. Now at 45, my neck hurts. Bo, he's getting too strong. Yeah. So those kids are getting to be really, really good and strong. So now I, as a coach, you bring those guys up as examples, and you're still passionate. You're still, the way you talk, the way you, I guess, motivate the room and coach the whole room is still with a ton of energy, but maybe not as much, when you're going live. I don't go live, with the boys anymore.
I cannot blame you on that one. These boys come from my head. I'm telling you, Laird Root wants to take my head off every day. Okay, so what is next for Young Guns? I mean, like, how many different locations do you guys have, and where do you see this thing going in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? Oh, do we lose it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. Like, as far as in Pennsylvania, we have 4 locations. So Murraysville, which is closer to Pittsburgh. We have our Johnstown location, Altoona, and then we have this one right here that I'm at today. So we have 4 locations. We practice Monday through Thursday, and then we have some. Obviously we have the one I talked about. Also, Eric Juergens runs the one in the Quad Cities. So, and then we've franchised. So we have a couple new ones. We have one in Nashville that's just doing awesome with Mike Hatcher. And we have a couple other ones that are smaller and just starting up. But as far as, the one that I can talk about here in Pennsylvania, we're kind of right at the, kind of what we like. It's, 4 locations. They're all within an hour of my house, a couple or 30 minutes. One, the Wednesday practice is nice. I get to walk right across my yard and come over here into this building. So that's really, really nice. Tuesday, I have an hour drive to Murraysville, Pittsburgh location, and an hour back. And I don't get back to about 11:30 at night after all the practice. Like, we have a double practice for young kids and then the older kids. So it's really nice. Then on the next night, then I just walk across my yard over here and we practice here. But yeah, I mean, really, it's just the exact same as the first day we started. Like, how can we help the kids today? And it's cool because, again, before I was driving practice myself, and I'd be maybe on the phone with a couple dads here and there. And now I got my son and my daughter in the back seat. And we travel practice. My wife comes and we kind of go to tournaments as a family and go to practice as a family. And it's really, really fun. They're playing video games and reading books in the back, and just being able to travel the country with them. I took my son to Super 32 this year. And again, my son doesn't know, like, he just thinks they're like kind of his older buddies. But like Jason Nolf's there and Jason grabs them, and he's having fun with them, like these guys. He doesn't know that these kids are like real, like, superstars of the sport. So, but yeah,
that's a good thing, though. No, that's a good thing, though. That's the way it should be. The kids, when Kendall Cross and Frank Chamizo come up to my son and they're wrestling with him before events, he just thinks it's normal. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like, oh, it's Kendall. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, but that's a nice thing, though, dude. That's kind of the way it should. And again, I kind of struggle with that part of the sport sometimes. Sometimes I feel like we're almost too approachable, right? Like, we haven't built our superstars up well enough where they're so approachable that like any kid can just walk up to Jordan Burroughs at a youth tournament now because Beacon is wrestling.
Yep.
And just get a picture or get time with him or and it's, I mean, JB's probably the greatest to ever do it, right? And like, if, I don't know, give that a name for baseball, whatever it is, for baseball or football or whatever, you don't get that type of opportunity. So there's pros and cons to that. But what if you could change anything about before we get to our magic wand question, but if there's something that you would have done differently coming up as a young club owner, what do you think it would be?
Yeah, really. I mean, I truly, I don't know. I really wouldn't change it because I've made mistakes, and it's like wrestling, whenever you make mistakes, it makes you better. So I'll say this. One of the things that I struggle with, and I still struggle with, is social media. Like, I love being in the room. I love helping the kids, but I struggle, like, saying like,
look how awesome you are. Yeah, yes, I get it. Yes. Like, I get it.
Or even like, we used to have camps, and a guy came up to me and is like, "This is the best kept secret in the world. Like, your camp." I'm like, well, I don't want that. I want kids to know about it. I want kids to come. Like, I don't want, so I've tried to do a little better job of, like, social media marketing in Pennsylvania, doing that. But I would say that's my biggest challenge as a coach, is trying to stay up with the times of social media, and it's always changing and evolving and getting better, and just things that we're trying to work on. Yep.
Man, for somebody with, what do you have, 4, 5, 6 locations and no marketing, you're doing a pretty good job over there.
Word of mouth is the son of a gun.
Yeah. They'll have Young Gun shirts on, and they've came to a camp, or they went to something. And so, like you said, they'll represent, by wearing t-shirts, sweatshirts, that kind of stuff. And like you said, word of mouth. And hopefully, there's a Young Guns kid out there right now today at a tournament getting a pin, and someone's asking what Young Guns is.
Mm-hmm.
What does that process look like of setting up new facilities and making that decision? Like, hey, we need to open a new one like an hour away.
A couple years ago, we actually had a couple more, and it just got to be too much. It was too much driving it, and I feel bad because I still get calls and texts and emails today, like, "Hey, we ever come back to our area?" And now I have 2 young kids, and so it gets to be harder and harder. Those longer drives that I was doing, but I guess again, it's natural. It's like back in the day, it was I live in Evansburg, Pennsylvania, and that's where we had one location whenever Eric Jurgens and I moved back here. And we had a lot of kids coming from the Pittsburgh area. And Dan Magaludis called me one day and said, "Hey, would you ever consider coming down to Murraysville?" And that's how we got into Murraysville. Is Nico Magaludis' father called us and asked us, invited us if we would go down to Franklin Regional. And geez, what an amazing opportunity that's been at Franklin. You've had Michael Kemmer and Spencer Lee and all those kids who have come through Franklin Regional. They've done it. Obviously, Nico and Spencer just wrestled each other in the Bill Farrell tournament, and but they came from that same high school. Nico Magaludis and Spencer, Michael Kemmer, Josh Shields, Josh Maruka, Tyler Smith. They all came from that. Devin Brown. All came from that one high school. They all won high school state titles. So, but yeah, that was the room that we got in then, and there's been a lot of really, really, really successful kids who have come down through that location.
But what is it? But what does the actual nuts and bolts look like? Do you look for, like, so you said Murraysville, you run the club out of Franklin High School, is that correct?
So,
or do you look for smaller spots that are like private?
So up until COVID, we were in high schools. We're not in any high schools right now. Post-COVID, we're not in any high schools. We're on all private facilities. So prior to COVID, yes, we were in Franklin Regional's high schools room. So they would be getting done with practice 5:30, 5:45, and we would be coming in with our youth group 6 to 7:30. Those kids then at 5:30, Michael Kemmer and the Spencer Lee kind of kids, they would go home, get a bite to eat, and then at 7:30 they would be come back right in that wrestling room, and they would go through their club practice, and that's all season long. Again, I know some clubs are different, like they only come in the off season, or but we've had a really, really, really committed group that they would go to their high school practice, go home, eat, boom. Jason Nolf talks about it, that he would, go home and then get in the car with his dad, study the whole way, because he's just an amazing kid. He wanted to be the valedictorian and the #1 ranked wrestler in the country. So he'd study the whole way to Young Guns for an hour, get out, eat in the car, get out, practice, hour, study all the way back, hour, get home at 11 o'clock at night and do it all over.
How do you go about finding coaches to kind of coach at all these locations? Is that something that you're kind of traveling and doing that all at yourself, or how do you kind of ensure the quality of your teaching?
So it's me and my brother for the most part. It's me and my brother John does most of the teaching. So John was a national champion at Pitt Johnstown, and again, you won't find a more passionate, like, his heart is into every practice kind of a coach. Again, he inspires me as a coach. He's just always into it. He loves it so much. So it's pretty awesome. So John does one practice, I do the other. And then we have a lot of dads that wrestled. Brian Capusta was a 3-time NCAA champion for North Dakota State. Larry Holman was a multiple-time All-American for Pitt Johnstown. Ryan Barr, Bill Bassett, he is into it 100% every day. And maybe he didn't have the background as some of the other collegiate wrestlers, but now there's no one that puts more time into it, that is in the room, that is researching it, and is traveling the country and seeing the techniques out there. So we have a lot of coaches like that who kind of maybe I assist, whenever I'm not there or John's not there, they step in, or when we are there, they're in the room right beside us helping helping the kids. So, so really, I said, it's not 5 practices in one night, or 4 practices. It's
Right.
2 practices in one night. If I'm at one, my brother's at the other. And that's how we run that.
That's pretty awesome. Okay, let's start getting to some quick questions here. Jody,
Sure.
what is the best wrestling shoe ever made?
Well, we're sponsored by Rudis now, so I'm definitely I'm 100% Rudis all in with them, and I've had a couple pairs so far, but I'm a huge fan. Love them.
All right.
I just got the JBs and I love them.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. I got a pair of those myself. All right. If you have a magic wand and you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about the sport of wrestling, what would it be?
Oh man, sometimes I say I wish we were freestyle year round, but I love folk style wrestling so much. I would say, geez, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. You got me.
Yeah. Oh, I got you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess again, it would just be that what we talked about initially, like, hey, I know that parents, they want the best for their kid, but just, that kind of help them, sometimes the ones that maybe didn't accomplish or didn't even participate in the sport, and they don't know what it's truly like, to go through it. And wrestling is brutal to go through. So just kind of, have that knowledge of what it takes, and, to maybe you don't have to win an NCAA title next year.
You know what's funny about that though? Here's what kind of bugs me.
Oh boy.
Those dads that never wrestled and then are overzealous with their kids, there's nothing stopping them from wrestling. They can strap up. I would give them a pair of shoes. You want to go get a jog in? Let's go, bud. Like, you think it's easy? You're screaming, get up, get up, get up.
Yeah.
Like, this ain't easy, bud. Like,
no, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
I have no problem taking a dad off into the corner and or introducing him to the sport. How about that?
Yeah.
All right. Last one. Who is on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Well, obviously I went to Iowa, so I love the Gable. I love the Brands brothers. They were what I said before, like, my son looks up to these kids. That's who I looked up to whenever I was a kid. So I'm putting them on. I love John Smith. And again, I know sometimes maybe you think like Iowa, Oklahoma State hate each other, and hey, maybe some do, but I love John Smith. I think he's incredible. He helped me a lot when I was a young kid, and he's definitely on it. Kel Sanderson undoubtedly is on that, 4-time undefeated. So those are definitely on there. And I hope.
Well, so wait, hold on a second now. Hold on. You went 5.
Young Guns kid.
Okay, 5. But hold on, though, Jody. You gave 5. You can't. Brand brothers are not one person. Okay. So you went Gable, Commentary, John, and then Kale. You got to get rid of one now. You got to get rid of one.
I'm not doing it. Not doing it.
You're just making another
we
mountain.
may have to. We're gonna have to keep. It's 2023. You got to keep expanding that wall, that mountain. And I hope that there's a Young Guns wrestler. Someday gonna be on that. There's been some really, really good ones. So we'll see someday. They keep working.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, man. All right, Jody. Thank you very much for coming on. We're not going to take up too much more of your time, but if there's anywhere that people can get a hold of you for camps or anything like that, where do you want people to get a hold of you?
Oh yeah, we have a website. It's all updated. Camps they're filling up fast already for this summer coming up. So, but it's younggunswrestlingcamps.com.
All right, Jody Strittmatter, thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk to you next time, brother.
All right, I appreciate it. Happy holidays, guys.
You too,
See
buddy.
you guys.